Hello, hello, NWI. Welcome to Bluer by the Lake, the show that explores region life through a blue lens. I'm your host, Tracy Martin, and it's an interesting time to be a Dem activist or a member of a Dem group right now, isn't it? None of us were raised to sit down and shut up. We're a passionate crew, and of all these days, we really do have every reason to be upfront and passionate about what we believe. It's what's keeping all of us going each day and not packing up and moving to whatever amazing European country we can find to take us in. This has been something that's been on my mind for a while, guys, as I've been seeing different organizations and different Democratic friends and people that I respect really grapple with the issues of where our party is going and where they want it to go and how fast they want it to go and how we're going to get to where we want it to go. So what happens when those passionate beliefs collide? How can we serve both groups of amazing people? And where do we draw the line on what we can tolerate and what we can't? Pretty weighty questions, right? So luckily for you, I found the perfect person to help us start untangling some of these questions. Why? Meet Kathy Watts, the leader of the Nasty Women of Porter County. If you have ever had the privilege of going to an event where they are having their witches perform, or if you've been a part of any of their initiatives, you are in for, they are one of the first and the most vocal support groups for Democrats in Northwest Indiana. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me tonight.
So, Kathy, tell us all about your group. No pressure.
No pressure. So, back in September of 2020, See Women organized relatively quick. It became a
Yeah, let's pause for
nationwide.
a quick second.
Yeah,
Now, I don't know about you, but when I say 2020, that feels to me like 1976 at this point. It feels like
definitely.
a whole different world.
Absolutely. That was in the middle of COVID, right? We couldn't get out and protest together. We were in the first Trump presidency. I think we were all a bit panicked about what we were seeing and witnessing. So, nationally, a group called Nasty Women organized after the debate uh, between uh, Trump and Hillary Clinton back in 2016, where he called her a nasty woman. And that's where the name came from. That we might
Mm-hmm.
as
Oh, I
well,
remember that.
we might as well adopt the name if we're going to be called it, right?
Yeah.
And if nasty meant that we spoke our truths and we believed what we believed and we weren't afraid to talk about it, then we'll accept the name nasty. And so we did. And I'm proud of that name. I'm proud to be called a nasty woman. So that's when it organized again. It was in the middle of COVID. So if you remember, like we couldn't get together. And so we organized online. And the state of Indiana did it a little bit differently than they did it nationally. My dog has found his pig in the back now, and he's gonna squeak it for us.
Okay. All right, folks. I know this is no news to anybody, but if this doesn't make the cutting room floor, we're pet friendly on Bluer by the Lake because I have a Irish doodle sitting back there that won't be put out for anything. So you can bring your pup on. We don't mind him.
Um, he has a pig that he will squeak to let everybody know he's here. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
so Indiana did it a little bit differently. They broke their nasty women group rather than by state, they broke it down into counties.
Sorry, let me just pause you for a minute. So I will tell you, it's very likely that the AI will butt that out. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Because I have a That's
It's
hilarious. So
okay. He has 2 of those pigs, by the way, and I thought I found them both, but evidently not.
that's hilarious. Dude. Shit. Life's
So,
short.
I'm
Let the
gonna
dog choose the pig. Okay.
going back to
So
2020, we were in the middle of COVID. We couldn't gather together. So, on social media, Facebook specifically, nasty women groups organized, and most of them did by state. But Indiana did it a little bit differently, and they broke theirs down by county. And so, Nasty Women of Porter County became a group. Um, the originally, the one of the original members and admins of the group, she said that she thought that perhaps we would get 30 people in this area. And turns out that today, as of today, we have roughly 3,700 women that have joined our group. And they are a part of many activist groups, not just our Nasty Women. And so, yeah, we have the Nasty Women of Porter County, 3,500, 3,700 women roughly, and we do a multitude of different things to become activists in our area. That's how it started. It was just a social online platform that we could kind of be like-minded women that were afraid of what was going on in our country at the time. And we were a little bit afraid because COVID was relatively new. We couldn't be together. We were struggling emotionally, mentally. People were dying. It was a really traumatic time, and so we were able to unite online.
It's hard. I'm just now at the point where I can start to really reflect about the COVID years because they were just so horrible and terrifying, and so much changed forever. I can imagine that for you, it must have just been a lifeline in a world that just felt so out of control.
Absolutely, it was. And I think that was because you felt very isolated anyway because of COVID. And then you felt isolated. I live in Valparaiso. And so you
Mm.
felt isolated that you're kind of, am I the only person that realizes that we are in a really crazy time with, quite honestly, a really crazy president? And so that's kind
And
of what I
this
thought.
quaint. Doesn't it feel almost quaint to you now?
Yeah.
Now what we have got now, looking back at those years and you can almost be like, okay,
Yeah.
we're going comparatively. Like, yeah.
Comparatively, it wasn't so bad, right?
Yeah, that was okay. Our president was telling us to shove bleach up our asshole, but
Yeah.
at least, oh God. Oh,
That was
Kathy.
the least of what we had to worry about.
So now, as you guys shifted to more like, once people started getting back together, did your guys' goals shift a little bit? How did you grow from there? And what are your goals now?
I think after the 2020 election, we go through, Joe Biden becomes president, and there was
And we're
kind
all
of
like, oh,
this.
thank God.
Yeah, thank you. We can breathe. And then it was like, well, here we are. We've got this group of like-minded women, and we've got a Democratic president. Our country's going to become more stable. What do we do with this now? Like, does Nasty Women stay relevant? Honestly, I didn't think that the relevance of the word Nasty Women would stick around. And here we are in 2025. And now what are we? Nasty left liberal scum or something like that. I don't know
I
what we
can't
are, but I'll
remember.
I'll take all of it.
Yep.
So yeah, so right after the election, then we decided, well, what are we going to do with this group? How are we going to evolve? So the first thing we did was we thought we would show our community that we weren't so nasty.
Hmm.
And so we did a philanthropic project. We put a call out to it's called Hilltop Neighborhood House, and it's a food pantry here in town. And at that time in 2020, we did the largest donation drop to them that they had ever had. We did
Oh,
um,
awesome.
a month. We collected everything from diapers to food to razors to deodorant to toothbrushes to scarves and hats to everything that you could possibly need. And every week we donated anywhere from 5 to 25 carloads worth of stuff to them.
Wow.
That was our next project. And then after that, in Portage, Indiana, there's a place called Gabriel's Horn. And we continued philanthropic projects by doing some remodeling of their rooms over there, providing beds and some storage areas for them over at Gabriel's Horn. And then we decided, well, there's a lot of organizations out there that are doing philanthropic projects. We don't necessarily want to be just a philanthropic organization. We're a political group, and we want to be uh, involved in the political arena. And so we started encouraging our women to get involved by running for office, running for delegates, becoming precinct chairs, becoming campaign managers. I was a campaign manager last year for the first time in my life, and doing things and getting involved, sitting on boards, running for school board, anything that you can imagine to get involved and get them to put a toe into the water. I think all too often we think that being in the political arena, all those people are so much smarter than us. Well, if Donald Trump has
Mm-mm.
done nothing, he has taught us. He's not
He's
smarter than
close to the
us.
curb. So oh, and to take some credit that you have built the nasty women into a political force that because as I'm talking to like say Barbara Domer on the Valpo City Council and I'm hearing things about these like block attainable housing grants and the programs you guys are putting through over there, that would not happen had you not laid the groundwork for those changes. Political change is a slow and grinding process, painfully slow and painfully grinding because people don't like to change. They just don't. So, but let's fast forward a few years and, Trump is elected again and we're all standing in the rubble of all our hopes
Yeah.
and dreams for a stable country that our children can be proud to call home and we can all survive and thrive in.
Yeah.
Now, I know when that happened, a lot of organizations really went through a hard pivot. Like myself, I was helping to manage a Harris Waltz field office in Gary, and everyone was just standing around. We had this big Facebook group of NWI for Harris and Waltz, and it had grown to have some big numbers, and everyone is just sitting there shell shocked and they're like, and we were like, should we close up? And they're like, oh God, please no, please don't leave us alone. So we stayed and we pivoted it over to NWI Takes Action and we're still there today. But at the time, right after people started really in January seeing like what was really happening, we started agitating and we started doing, and I'm proud of this. NWI Takes Action was one of the first groups to post a protest post-election because everybody was still figuring out what to do. And I did that because I wanted to, but I also knew that a lot of the people in my cohort wanted to, and NWI Takes Action wanted to as well. Now, how did the nasty women navigate that tumult?
At the time right after the election, we had 6 admins. We have 3 admins now. And I think that election was just a blow in every way, shape, and form. I know for me personally, I was angry. I was so angry. I was, and what do we do when we're angry? Like we yell at the people closest to us because it's a safe space, right?
Mm.
And I think the thing that I was most angry about, I was angry at women because I really thought that women would turn out more than they did. I was having a hard time even celebrating our wins, the wins that we did have,
I'm
because I kept
sorry.
thinking it didn't matter. I wondered what the future would look like. I personally thought about stepping away from Nasty Women, quite honestly, because sometimes when you're in a group like this and you're getting people at all levels of political involvement, I was really getting tired of telling people to vote. If you don't know the basics, like just go out and vote, then I was tired of doing that.
I know. I know. And you're like, look, I have a family, tired. Like, come on, like God gave you a brain or your mom grew one for you. So how many times do I have to tell you, please just go vote?
Yeah.
But
Um, so it was a really rough patch during that time, and I wasn't sure. Some of the admins, well, 3 of the admins left for personal reasons. One left because she did win a position and wanted to step away. And I think one of them wanted to go in a different direction, and another one just wasn't like she was tired. Right? We were all tired. We put everything we had into that.
Mhm.
And so that left 3 of us, right? And we didn't know what to do. So we kind of brainstormed together and we thought, okay, let's look at what's worked in Nasty Women and let's look at what we could expand upon. So, one thing that we have found, you mentioned Nasty Witches early on. That was a group that developed, and it's a really cool group. The Witches dance is really cool. I am not a witch because I don't dance, spirit, but
Same.
they are amazing, and they perform at a multitude. They started performing at the Chesterton European Market, and now they have performances all over Northwest Indiana. They seem to be like our really involved group. So we started looking at that and saying, well, when you are with other people that are like minded, you will start to evolve and become more comfortable talking about political stuff, learning about political stuff. We 2 years ago, we took a pretty large group of state delegates down to Indianapolis to be state delegates, most of who have never done it before. And they were
Mm.
our state delegates representing Northwest Indiana. And it turned out that we were a group of friends that I was like, come on, let's go. We can room together. We can make it a girls' weekend. We'll have a good time. We've got an even larger group now going down for the
I can't
2025
wait.
convention.
I can't wait. Yeah.
So, yeah, those are the things that we found. So we've now developed we stay active politically, very active politically. But how do we get more people involved and doing more than just going out to vote? Is we get them involved in the groups that we have. We have a widows and caregivers group. We have 4 book clubs. We have a hiking club. We have the witches group. We have a supper club. And all of these women get to know each other, and new people are coming in, and we can kind of bring them along that way. So, socially, we have found that it's easier to bring women along when they are with people that they are comfortable with. And we're doing it.
So that's very interesting that it seems like you're using these social interactions as a way of preparing women to step into political positions of leadership.
Sure.
One of the things that I was very interested about knowing a little bit about your history though is when you guys when you had more admins on your board and you were looking, and you had one that wanted to take the organization in a different direction, what did that look like? And I'm going here because I know that there's a really sharp division between people who want to be on streets with pickets and out fighting and leading marches and boycotts, and others that want to manage their political voice in a different way.
Yeah. So I think everybody feels a little bit. I am pretty vocal in our community. I go to city council, county council, commissioners' meetings. I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm not going to run for public office. And the reason is because I speak up, right? I'm not neutral, right? And I think at times we want, some of our political people to be a little bit neutral. Like we're supposed to represent both sides. That's what I grew up. I actually grew up a Republican.
Same.
I was from a Republican, a strong Republican house. And so I think it's like I wanted people to listen to both sides and then kind of come to a happy medium, right? What do we call the Joe Lieberman, Senator McCain times, right? And that's kind of what I want for my elected official. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want Democrats in office. I absolutely 100% do, but that's because I'm vocal. So I'm not going to run for office because I'm so vocal. I think everybody is comfortable in different ways. Some it might just be putting a sign in their yard. Some it just might be voting. I mean, I can't tell you how many women, when I've called and said, hey, will you put a sign in your yard? They go, no, I don't want my neighbors to know. I think it's a weird time not to want people to know what party you align with. I think it's a pretty easy decision, but everybody is on different levels. And I think that like after the election, that's kind of like, where do we want to take this group? And for me, it wasn't just doing the same things. It wasn't just saying that we're going to keep telling people to vote and we're going to do some philanthropic projects and show up to a few meetings. I thought it was important that we expound upon it because doing the same thing over and over isn't going to get us different results.
Yeah. So now when I first met your crew, this was during the Wicker Park Women's March last November. They came in full kit and danced, and it was amazing, like I said. But I'll tell you, that was an opinionated group to work with. And every time I turned around, one of them had one question, one wanted to change one thing. They're fighting amongst themselves. And at the end of the day, and at first I was like, dude, these guys are they're fractious. Like they really, they're not gonna do what anybody says. And they're gonna kill each other. But then they finally they pulled it off and they did exactly what they needed to do. But I also remember thinking, man, it would be really difficult to manage those dynamics. Now, tell me a little bit about how you manage all those different voices within your group and making sure they all have a space where they feel heard and respected.
Yeah, that's a funny word to use. My background is in human resources.
Ah, there we go. Shocker.
So, first of all, manage is a funny word because I don't think we don't always manage it, right? And I don't think people should be like in a situation like this, which is a group of like-minded women, doesn't mean we all have the same thoughts. So to say to manage it, I think is hard because I don't want to rein anybody in. Everybody should have a safe place to come and voice their opinions and to and as long as we're respectful about it. And I think that's what's the hardest. If you have to manage anything, that's what you have to manage, is that respect remains in the group. And I can think of an instance where we had an admin that she voiced a concern about a resolution for it was for school money appropriations. And she voiced a concern in a private group with like-minded women. And it was a question that she raised and was attacked for it because it didn't agree with some people. Interestingly enough, because she was attacked for it in the group, a lot of people were private messaging her saying, thanks for asking the question. I had the same question, or I agree with you, or, my kid goes here and here's why this works for me. But she was the one who took the brunt of it. And that's where we can't, why do we eat each other? We're going to make a group that is a safe place. It needs to be safe for even when we agree to or disagree with each other, we can agree to disagree. And still, I want to revert back a little bit. As I explained, I grew up in a Republican family, but and I'm the baby of 8 kids. And my parents opened their doors every Friday night. They opened them up to anybody who wanted to come over. And that was friends, siblings, nieces and nephews. It's where we brought our boyfriends when we wanted to introduce them to the family. And it was every Friday night for as long as I can remember. The greatest thing about it is we would have debates all the time. And at the end of the night, after we debated, we all gave each other hugs and said goodbye and I love you. What happened to that type of political debate? And I think one that resounded with me was I had a sister-in-law that was Ryan White's teacher, and Ryan White was the first young man that was in Indianapolis Public Schools diagnosed with AIDS. That he had gotten from a blood transfusion. And of course, AIDS was brand new at the time. I can remember the debate at the house, but learning that so much I learned at that table. One side, thinking that he should be able to remain in school, including his teacher, which was my sister-in-law, and the other side, afraid of that. But at the end of the night, we could all come together. I think that is what I hope for the group, that we can debate as long as it's not like I always say, I'll debate political policy any single day. But the moral stuff, that's not up for debate. there's no moral fights in the group.
So I have some ideas on this, and I'm going to pick your brain about them in a little bit. But before I get there, I did want to talk about what sent me knocking on your doorstep. So you had, as you've mentioned, the Nasties have really worked hard to lay ground games for building some political power. And now you do have, you have a seat at some tables, and people and politicians do, when you ask for meetings, they will listen to you. And you recently met with some politicians, and I'm just going to let you take the story from there.
We had the opportunity, along with, and I actually did not set the group up, but I was invited to attend with 3 other political groups in our area, and we had a meeting with Senator Todd Young's Northwest Indiana director. She covers 10 counties in Northwest Indiana. This was the day before the vote on ICE funding, or the funding package appropriations. And we thought it was important that we get in there and kind of have the opportunity to speak with her and let her know how we felt. It was a great meeting. Obviously, he did not listen because he voted for the package. But long story short, we received a lot of blowback. We posted pictures in all of the groups of that meeting. That we had a seat at the table and that we were able to speak to her and able to voice some of our concerns, which expanded more than just those appropriations. It was a number of different things. It was a very good meeting. We felt respected. We felt like we were listened to. We were given information on how to best ensure that our voices were heard. We posted pictures in each of our political action groups. That picture had gotten outside of the group, and somebody compared us to um, Jewish, the Jewish people of Germany sitting with the Third Reich at the table. I was deeply offended by that.
Why? Tell me about that.
Ugh. I just think the comparison is awful. I grew up knowing a two-party system that we are again going to be different in policies. I think that there is some moral compass. I think Republicans sometimes are afraid to break from the party because they seek office more than and I just thought I thought it was disgusting. I thought it was so disrespectful. And in addition to that, we had a Jewish man in our group, and I
Mm.
just was mortified that that would occur.
So, Kathy, tell me a little bit about why people objected so strenuously to this at this meeting and your work there.
I think a lot of I don't know what people want us to do. I don't know what's going to work. I don't know what's going to get through to Republicans. I don't know. But I right now am fighting to save my country in any way that I can. And if that means I'm standing on a street corner protesting, meeting with Todd Young's aide, writing letters, making phone calls, whatever that is, I'm going to do everything in my power so that someday when somebody says, well, what did you do? I can say, I tried everything. And hopefully I can say, and it worked.
Yeah.
But I won't go down not fighting. And I hope that other people believe the same thing. I don't know what's going to work. I don't know if that was pointless for us to go in there and meet with him. I like to believe that our messages got to him. I mean, we didn't just talk about the appropriations, we talked about a number of things. I talked
Hmm.
about some concerns that I have in regards to um, Medicaid. And when it's cut federally, we are a red flag state when it comes to Medicaid. And when it's cut federally and the state cuts it, we're doomed. And I have a family member that receives Medicaid, and I spoke of what's happening to her. And I hope that it was heard, or at least I hope that if I call that I can, and that was one of the things that was shared with us. Give us the real impacts. Those are the stories that Senator Young, she told us, want to hear is the real impacts. So if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. But I wouldn't have known that had I not gone and met with her.
So it sounds like that the response to your meeting really took you by surprise.
Very much so. I've never understood. Look, in the Republican Party, say what you want about them, but you don't see them attacking each other online, in person, face to face, in any way, shape, or form. They all seem to stand together. Now, I'm not dumb enough to think that behind closed doors, there's not some serious debates and questions going on, but you don't see it out publicly. And when you are destroying another Democrat's attempts to do something, you are convincing people that, remember back when I said I was really mad at the people who didn't vote? You're encouraging people not to vote because you're saying nothing's going to work. So just shut up. And I think that's what we do all too often. I've been amazed since I've been involved in politics in Northwest Indiana, how many people I have seen run for office as a Democrat, and when and if they lose, they disappear. You don't hear from them. These were people that were actively involved, engaged, and wanting to serve their community, and they get so beat up that they
Mm.
step away completely. We don't hear from them anymore. I admire the ones who come back time and time again because I find it very hard at times to be a Democrat when other like minded people are tearing you down, telling you didn't do it right. We're a huge tent. We're huge. Everybody wants to fight for something different, and there's no right way to fight for it all.
That's really an impactful thing to say. There is no right way to fight for it all. And it's a huge struggle because there are some people that are. Oh, I have been noodling on this topic of like, how do we fix how we talk to each other for a while now? And I just talked to, I had a Valpo, a progressive Democrat, Hannah Villani came on, and Carmen Ware came on, and they know each other, and I wanted 2 people that knew each other and would talk to each other politely to talk, and the conversations that came out of that were fascinating because, for example, I identify as progressive, but I have a more pragmatic approach to the way I want to, uh, roll those policies out, I think, and to me, what really stuck out in some of the things that Hannah said to me was that her impatience and her generation's impatience with the idea that, say, some moderate Democrats have that, we need to be standing firm and solid against these more moderate policies and that we should not be engaging with the other side and that we should be standing on street corners and fighting immediately for this very progressive agenda and no in between is that they're coming from a position of pain and that life has been so awful for them for so long that they can't stand it one more second. And if they're going to be if this is the way their life is going to be, they're going to fight for the life that they want right now. And they're not waiting anymore. What thoughts does that strike for you?
A couple of different things. I remember, as I explained last year, 2 years ago now, I was a campaign manager for Erica Watkins. She ran against Ed Soliday for Indiana House of Representatives. And I learned a lot during that time. I learned so much. I always said it's unfortunate that I had to be a campaign manager to learn it all. But I remember speaking to one candidate and I said, why aren't you coming out and speaking about women's rights being taken away in the state of Indiana? And why aren't you speaking about legalizing marijuana in Indiana? And that particular candidate, it wasn't Erica, it was a different representative, said to me that if I don't get in office where I need to get the moderate vote, I can't impact that. It's not that I don't agree with it, but I got to get in office first. And I felt like that resonated with me because if we don't, this country moves slow. Everything moves slow about this country. And if we don't take the basic, not the far left and the far right, but if the middle of the road people along slow enough where you can move them one direction, because right now we've moved in the wrong direction. If we want to bring them back, we're going to need to bring them back just a little bit slower so that we can get what we want. We
Well,
can
I'm
get our right.
going to challenge you for a quick second here, Kathy, because maybe that's the way it was before. But as we've seen over this past year, America's changed extremely rapidly. And, the world that we knew on January 6th is gone. And it's changed. It's just so different. It's shocking. And things that we thought would never happen happened, and it happened at a lightning pace. So I can see some perspectives that say, if not now, when? If we take this incremental approach to change because we are afraid that we aren't going to win, we're never going to get anywhere. And the fear is that we might be leaving a generation behind who are going to form their own party that then can dilute your ability to do the work you're doing and have a seat at the table. What would you say to somebody who offered that perspective? How
I
would you
think it
incorporate somebody's passion like that?
understand that 100%. I think the country, you're right, has changed from when Trump took office again. It has changed rapidly and frighteningly so. And the American voter, though, is in my what I'm witnessing now, what we're witnessing across the country is not happy with that extreme either. So
Mm,
we're coming back again here, right? We're coming back to I wanted you to deport the worst of the worst when it came to illegal immigrants. I don't like what you're doing. They're staying right here in the middle. And I
hmm,
think there's a difference between what the country is doing versus what the voter wants done. And I think
mm.
that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking more of the voter here. We can't move this way into that's a long distance to go from right to left. Let's come back as the voter to the middle, meaning that doesn't mean that I don't like and want the progressive policies. I do, but I think we have to bring the voter along. And right now, I think the voter is not liking the right way that the country is going. So we have the opportunity this year and these next couple of years to swing them back, to get them back voting for Dems so we can bring it a little bit further our way.
You're taking the long game view. You're banking on
Oh,
the
I don't
fact
think
that
I don't
you're
think we
banking.
can take the long view on some things. So remember
So what
earlier
would
I told
okay,
you
that's very interesting. What wouldn't you take the long view on? Where would you just go hell bent
well,
for leather and say it's now?
there are things that are happen again, Democrats and Republicans, I will debate anybody any day, say I love you and good night when it comes to policy. Policy is one thing. We can debate on policy. When it comes to what our moral compass is, what we are called to be as human beings, and more importantly, what our Constitution is, that's not a long game. That's we fix that now.
Mm,
That's what
mm.
we have to preserve and save. Policy, which for whatever reason, politics has no longer become about policy. It's
And it's
good
just so
versus
fucking
evil.
weird. What are we doing? If we don't have a legislature that makes policy and all they're doing is like making podcasts, like what? I mean, I make podcasts. I want I like listening to my politicians tell me what they're doing policy wise in their podcasts, but I don't want them just going up there to rail at people and give me sound bites. Like I want legislation. So
Yeah.
what happened?
That's what I think that we are missing. And that's why I think people are quitting voting, right? We've
Mm,
been told, it's kind of like in Indiana. We've been told so long we're a red state. Democrats don't go out and vote because they think, what's the point?
Stop right there,
We,
real quick. We are not. You've
we
seen the
are.
maps, and I've seen them too. And when you tally those votes up, those counties have a red ship to them because when you count a whole county, you color the whole thing red. But if you look at each little vote, it's so purple, it's ridiculous. Indiana
Yep.
is not a ruby red state. I don't care what anybody says. We
But
went
the
for Obama.
Republicans have
There's
done
a
a
reason.
great job. The Republicans have done a great job of convincing us that it's a red state.
Nope.
They've done a great job. Their messaging continues they have great messaging, right? They did the same thing by calling themselves the pro-life party. They stole the American flag from us because they said it was theirs. And when I say we, I mean people in general are like, yep, they're the pro-life party. Yep, Indiana's a red state. Yep, if you're flying a flag, you're a Republican, right? Their messaging is great. We missed out on the messaging.
So, where do you see things going for both the nasties and for Dems that are really struggling to learn how to agree? And this is an important question because the one thing that's come out very strongly for me for everybody that I've been asking about this, who occupy different sides of the progressive moderate schism, which is really what's fueling so much of the dem on dem fighting now. And they're not doing it because they want to be obstructive or stop us from retaking power. They're doing it because I believe they feel like this is our last chance to get a world that they feel they can live in. And that's really potent and powerful. And I heard this time and again and again and again. And this came from progressives directed towards moderates, but also moderates directed towards progressives, is that everybody felt that they did not have a voice at the table and that their opinions were being disregarded by the people that they love and care about and that should be their allies. And so, how can we set up a world within our party and all the institutions that support it, like the Nasty Women and the NWI Takes Actions and this podcast and the Democratic Party and Indivisible? Like, how can we create these systems where Democrats are gathering and people are of like minds in so many ways, and make sure that everybody feels that their voice and their opinions are being heard and respected?
I think that's you. I mean, you said it right there. Right. Bring everybody to the table. I think Democrats are angry right now. They're just angry. It doesn't matter whether you're moderate or progressive or everybody's just angry. We're angry at what's happening and our heads are spinning, right? We don't know. Today we're fighting this and tomorrow we found out about this and we forgot about that. I mean, it's th- it's
It's a
terrifying.
lot.
And I think we in some way, shape, or form, we're all struggling with depression. I think we
Oh,
have
Jesus.
anxiety. I
Every
think we
day.
every day, we have anxiety. What's going to happen today? I don't know about you, but I turn on the news in the morning and I know what I hope for. I don't get it. And I think what's happening is we take it out on each other and so I think what needs to happen is I think just like what you're doing is bringing progressives and moderates together and letting them speak but keeping it respectful and that's what am trying to really push for in the group is that we are all dealing with this in different ways. We are all being impacted by this administration in different ways. And all of us deserve a seat at the table. And our different groups, I'm really grateful that the Valpo Resistance, Nasty Women, Northwest Indiana activists, all of us are able to sit at the table together and realize that we are better together than working separate.
Kathy, do you have any last things that you want to share with anybody listening today?
This is not the year to set out. This is not the next 2 years we can't sit out. And whatever that looks like, whether it means making sure everybody in your family and your friends are registered to vote and getting them out there to vote, whether it means standing on a corner. And I'll tell you, I don't know that I'm making any big impact by standing on a corner, but I sure know that it helps my depression and my anxiety when I'm out there because I'm
Mhm.
with people that I'm standing strong with. Whether it means running for office, becoming a state delegate, becoming a precinct committee chair, getting involved and asking questions. There are no dumb questions. There are no
Mhm.
dumb questions. Ask the questions, whether it's how do I go vote? Nobody's going to think you're stupid if you're 60 years old and you've never voted in your life. They'll be happy to take you. I am known, and my servers here in Valpo will tell you that I ask every server that I have in Valpo, are you registered to vote? And I have taken a number of them, walked them, got them registered, and walked them the first time to vote and got pictures with them while they voted.
Aw, that's awesome.
Young kids in our civics classes and our government classes anymore, they aren't taught how to vote. And I think in a state where we have some of the lowest record turnout, we can't assume that their parents are taking them. Like the proud
Right.
moment that I had when my mom took me to vote for the first time.
Mhm.
Parents aren't doing that. And many parents aren't voting. And if their parents aren't voting, then the kids aren't voting. So it's up to all of us to
Kathy,
do whatever we can to get people out there.
do you remember Take Your Daughter to Work Day? We need a
Yep.
Take Your Kid to Vote Day. Take your kids to the polls day.
Yep.
Sometime during early voting. One last thought that you've just given me listening to you. Even if we are pushing the chairs out for people to sit down at the table, unless they put their butts in there, they're not going to be there. You cannot get a seat at the table if you won't sit down. So I can see your perspective here where you're doing everything you can to make sure every voice, no matter what side of the political spectrums they fall on within our big old grand tent of Democrats, sits down and talks. So, Kathy, thank you so much for spending some time with me this evening. It has been a delight and very thought-provoking. So, folks, if you have any more questions for me or Kathy, drop some comments in this. And in the meantime, it's still a little too cold for me to be heading up to the lake, but if I do, I will record it so you can see that I did. Stay warm, stay safe, NWI.
I think